Thank you for that nice tribute. I'm saying that's for William. Now you see why we invited Gwen Austin to our meeting. 2 or 3 quick items before we make the transition. We are going to be followed immediately by what we call the pageant, an 18th century reenactment of a Quaker meeting. We know that some of you must leave. We hope that as many of you as possible will sit right where you are. I'm an old school administrator, and we had to run things by the clock. So I sometimes become a bit unquakerly when we lose our sense of time, because schools had to run by the bell. Just a few quickies, though, at the risk of fouling up the schedule. Somebody picked up a notebook, apparently someone's notes on Phoebe Jacobson's talk that's written on overnight transportation companies pad. So if it's yours, would you pick it up here in just one moment? At the risk of getting myself in deep water, I must recognize just a few people who are here. We have members of this meeting who have gone to distant lands and returned. I hope that you will be properly recognized in the reception that's being held this evening. I want to recognize those who had ancestors in this meeting years ago that have come from great distance. And I'll miss people that I should say, but I want to mention first a direct descendant of William Amos, who is sitting here, who came from Lebanon, Missouri. Wilbert Amos, his wife, and 2 other Amoses are here, and we're delighted that you're here.
Please stand, sir.
Yeah, would you stand, the 4 of you? We have had the pleasure all week of having another descendant of William Amos who came from Spanish Fort, Alabama. Gertrude Stevens, would you stand up? In the 1790s, I believe, we had a Hayhurst family that moved from Deer Creek and spent considerable time at this meeting. And sometime in the first quarter of the 1800s, they, like hundreds of other people, trekked to the wide open West. We have at least one of those descendants here today, Paul Hayhurst from West Virginia, and his wife. So would you stand? I have been looking for a descendant of the Dutton family. You know, when I stand up here before the crowd, I never did have a good memory, and when I stand up here, I forget everything I had, and I forget people's names. But I was expecting a gentleman from Washington, D.C., who is a descendant of the Dutton family. Maybe tomorrow. And I'm looking at some distant family, and we have here in the back seat a direct descendant of the Bonds that must be recognized. Cooper. See, I forgot your first name. Cooper is here from Easton, Maryland. Let me say a word about the Bonds. His grandfather, great-grandfather, lived in the White House that you local people know is down here at the corner. I told him, and a lot of people don't know, that his ancestor, Thomas T. Bond, in 1842, opened a post office in his store down here, and he called it White House. Did you know there was a White House in Maryland, right here in Fallston? He sold his farm and moved west, so it didn't stay a White House long because it moved up here and became Fallston. Problem is, I'm in trouble now because I see Hollingsworth, Preston, Livesey, Riggins, Benson. You people don't live far enough away, so, so I've got to get out of that. But there may be people from a great distance that'll come up and lambaste me and do so. But we must move to the second part. So let's take just a few minutes. If you must leave, would you do so now? And we'll make the transition here so that we can go ahead with the early meeting of the 1800s. Thank you very much.
This gives rise to sensitive consideration to every expressed viewpoint and often requires patient deliberation, disciplined by respect for each individual contribution. It is the task of the presiding clerk to direct the unhurried deliberations. He or she must weigh each expression and viewpoint and recognize when the whole body has reached a workable consensus. He or she must capture the sense of the meeting into a minute, which accurately reflects the final decision. The recording and reading clerk reduces to writing the minute and also reads correspondence and previous minutes. Although the dialogue you're about to hear was taken from actual Little Falls minutes, some literary license has been taken to telescope, as it were, the issues and concerns covering a span of about 80 years. With your indulgence, this will provide a spectrum of concerns reflective of the Little Falls religious community of the time. The dividing petition down the middle of the meeting house also requires some explanation as it relates to this presentation. Quakers were early in recognizing the equality of the sexes in both spiritual and secular matters. Both men and women were recognized as ministers and leaders. Up until the year 1899, the business sessions were held jointly but separately, with the women on one side of the closed petition and the men on the other. Messages were carried back and forth through the door at the rear. The reason for this arrangement was not from lack of perceived equality, but rather the pragmatic and tactful accommodation of their sometimes delicate nature, the issues at hand, and subsequent deliberations. It should be noted, however, that men and women and the family unit met together for the meeting for worship. Come join with us as we observe an 18th century Little Falls meeting going about its business, which was and still is today very much an extension of the meeting for worship. At the conclusion of the meeting, we welcome your questions relating to what you've seen and heard.
Now that Little Falls for worship and business. Friend, Priscilla Wilson will read the collected query.
Are all careful to keep meetings, both weekly, first day and monthly, coming in due time and bringing forth their families? Are all careful to keep out of sleep and drowsiness at meetings?
Jesse Lancaster is recognized to give the meeting's response to this query.
Meetings are kept up middling well, and instances of unbecoming behavior are rare. Love and unity appear to be well maintained, although the love which characterizes the followers of Jesus is not enough experienced by all. Care is taken to observe the hour and to avoid sleeping, although some incidences of drowsiness have been observed.
May we have the reading of the minutes of the last meeting?
The Gunpowder Monthly Meeting of Friends was held on 5th, 1788 at Gunpowder. The following query was read. Do all who have Negroes under their care show respect for them as people and train them up in the fear of the Lord? Friend John Mason responded to the meeting as follows. There are no slaves or blacks among friends. Families are provided for. Some endeavor is made to instruct them in useful learning, although no school learning is present. David Smith and wife, Hannah Smith, were accepted into membership by certificate from the Fallston MD in Pennsylvania. The following friends were appointed to report back to next monthly meeting on the state of the burial ground and to propose appropriate rules of good order. William Amos, William Brown, Nick Williams, John Wilson, and Moses Dillon. The following friends were appointed to wait upon James Amos and Hannah Lee in the matter of clearance for their marriage under the care of this meeting. Those friends are Thomas Wilson, Joseph Dyer, Mary Lancaster, and Susanna Hicks. Peter Miles, having had a right of membership among Quakers, but having married out by hireling preacher, non-attendance at meetings and fighting. Therefore, we disown him, but said Peter Miles, from being any longer a member of our religious society. There being no further business, after a moment's silence, the meeting was adjourned.
Are there corrections or additions to these minutes? If not, they are approved as read. Friend John Wilson, may we have the report of the Oversight Committee on the burial ground?
Clerk, please. After due consideration, we propose the following rules of good order for the burial ground. Firstly, no grave to be dug without an application which has been approved by the Oversight Committee representative. Secondly, admittance for interment be only to friends, attenders, and persons of orderly conduct, or old people near the end who personally make that request. Thirdly, a member of the Oversight Committee will attend each burial to see that no meeting be held at the interment, but time be allotted for a pause both before and after the corpse has been put to the ground, in order that the impressive influence of an occasion so awful may have its proper effect on the minds of those who are present. Fourth, burial ground will be properly enclosed and decently kept, and there will be prevented the affixing of any monument of any description to the grave for the purpose of distinction. Fifth, friends will avoid the imitation of worldly displays of mourning habits and other unseemly customs, respectively submitted William Amos, William Brown, James Williams, Moses Dillon, and John Wilson.
Clerk, please.
Benjamin Howard,
I commend the committee for sensitive and thoughtful effort. I'm up here regarding item number 4, which appears to prevent the fixing of a monument to identify grave sites. Does he intend to have burial grounds unmarked graves?
Clerk, please. It is thought that the unseemly to say so much in fashion among the world's people should be scrupulously avoided.
serve a useful purpose for the orderly maintaining of records to permit a modest marker for identification.
I find myself in unity with Frank Benjamin Howard, not only for order and procedure, but out of concern for the feelings of families survivors. I too would not be comfortable with markers for the purpose of ostentation distinction. But it would not be possible to have modest markers limited in size and distinction.
Mr. Clerk, please. The Oversight Committee would have no objection to markers clearly limited in size and distinction. I propose the following modification in this regard. Monuments should be limited to fieldstones not to exceed in size of 6 by 12 by 6 inches, suitably identified by name, date of birth, and date of death.
Trustee Lancaster?
Clerk, please. I'm not comfortable with what appears to be a tendency to follow the practices of the world with respect to grave markers. But I will stand aside as long as these suggestions are scrupulously followed.
Our friend is in unity with the burial ground rules as amended. Resulting. The committee appointed to deal with the matter of disorderly walk amongst us has been laboring with Thomas James and proposes the following minutes, which I'll ask the reading clerk to present for your approval.
Thomas James, for some time, made profession of the blessed truth with us, the people called Quakers, but not minding as he ought the conduct of a life and spirit which teaches to wait humbly and uprightly in the Lord, and to observe the good rule of doing unto others as we would have them do unto us, has by his unfair and deplorable action been the cause of great grief and trouble unto us, and brought reproach upon our holy profession, to wit, he has frequented fairs, horse racing, and other places of diversion, which is contrary to our discipline and the gospel dispensation. Now, after sufficient admonition and waiting, in order to see if he would clear himself of the charges against him, he continues to evade. We do hereby declare that the said Thomas James, by his so doing, has gone out of fellowship with us, the people called Quaker, and we cannot own him to be one of our society until, by his conduct, he demonstrates that true spirit that delights to know people.
Clerk, please.
Jennifer?
In this matter of Fred Thomas James, has there been sufficient evidence shown?
Clerk, please.
President?
The committee is appointed to call Fred James, have labored hard with him, and I know at times you have to appear tender. We are convinced that he continues to evade. In the matter of our society's steadfastness to preserve our guarded community, we cannot continue to own him to be in our society.
That friend speaks my mind.
I conceive that friends approve the aforesaid minutes.
Clerk, please.
Madam Brown?
The committee for the clearance of Kennedy and James Ennis reports as follows. We have waited on James Ennis and Hannah, both members of this meeting, who wish to be married, and after due consideration and careful discussion, it is our opinion that they be allowed to proceed under the canons of
Do friends approve the marriage of James Amos and Hannah Lee under care of Will Policy?
Clerk, please.
Madam Brown?
The parents committee reports as staff that following the home of James Lee, We know the presence of a piano. We like our testimony against music and dance, which is taken to the practice of which they convert us from the farm style. We could just recommend the fundamental committee to search and see if this is a breach of our justice.
Do friends approve the committee recommendation that a committee be appointed to wait upon Friends David Lee to inquire whether there has been a breach of Friends' testimony? If Friends approve, the clerk will also appoint a committee consisting of Ann Williams, Ann Hamer, Jesse Tyson, and William Bull to oversee the marriage of James Amos and Hannah Lee, that it be conducted with proper decorum. Do Friends approve? Yes.
I have for some time been laboring under a hearty concern to bring some small encouragement and support to those friends who have removed to this perilous and untamed Ohio country. Way is now open for me to accompany our beloved sisters, Mary Dillon Price of the Gunpowder and Elizabeth Rigby Cole of Deer Creek, who are planning an extensive journey to the newly formed Friends meetings in Plymouth, Plainfield, Stillwater, and Miami. I have a concern especially to bring some small comfort to those families who have lately removed from our meetings to that wilderness area. Among them are our dear friends Martha M. Stone, Ruth Walton, Elizabeth Lancaster Jones, and Ann Howard Mason. If friends unite and are comfortable with this immensity, I request a travel note.
Do Friends approve? Do Friends approve the following minutes which I'll request the reading clerk to read?
Mary Kirk, a beloved member of Oak Falls meeting, has opened to us her meeting Travel Among Friends in the Miami country of Ohio. She has a leading to minister among and nurture the spiritual life of scattered friends, particularly those at Miami and Stillwater meetings. Elizabeth Cole of Deer Creek and Mary Price of Gunpowder have agreed to accompany her, and they will travel in this ministry in the summer and fall of this year. This meeting tonight is Mary Kirk's leading, and we commend them to her care.
Do Friends approve this minute, this traveling minute?
Clerk, please. On behalf of the Committee of Sufferings, I wish to report that Gunpowder and Little Falls have collected a total of 109 pounds 9 shillings toward relief of the unhappy people of Massachusetts Bay, who groan under the severity of restrictions on shipping placed by the Crown. These monies will be given under the care of friend John Cornwaite of Tapsco Meeting and friend John Reno of Philadelphia for delivery to Rhode Island friends who will distribute these monies among the suffering people of the Massachusetts Bay Colony.
Thank you for that report. If there are no other concerns or business to come before this meeting, we will close this moment of silent worship. Thanks, friends.
The way our business meetings were conducted in the 18th century, the concerns have changed because the world has changed. We no longer need to be concerned so much about the treatment of slaves. We're concerned about the treatment of economic, political slaves, about persons who do not receive equality in the workplace, about persons who do not receive political equality in their countries around the world. We're no longer concerned with some of the things that appear very trivial, such as possible disownment of a person who owns a piano. Many of these were original concerns, seriously held. The Society of Friends had attempted to isolate itself from the evil of the world, and it slipped into practices of disownment. Quakers, incidentally, do not just talk of sin. It is not a matter that it was sinful to own a piano, simply that it was not in accord with the testimonies of friends. And such an individual, if he persisted in running counter to the testimonies, would be removed from the meeting. The procedure reached a point in the late 18th and early 19th century where the Society of Friends lost a significant number of members to disown. We came through tumultuous times of changing of policies. The Society of Friends has now become much more liberal, accepting in its beliefs. The testimonies have remained the same. We still believe that there is that of God within every one of us. We believe that the presence of God within every one of us imposes on us a need to treat everyone with respect, to not deal violently with anyone. Therefore, civil rights, peace, become some of our significant testimonies. In a few minutes, we will have a modern, present-day meeting. This will be an actual, on-the-record business meeting of the Little Falls Friends meeting. You will have an opportunity to observe some of the considerations and how they are actually treated at the present time. Now, if there are any questions in the meantime that you have pertaining to the 18th century meeting or the one which is to come, I'd be happy to do what I can to answer them with the help of some of the friends that are in the audience and maybe more experienced than I in certain areas. Yes. In the beginning time of Friends, several customs that set us apart from other members.
What? I know.
Either. I don't want to get in the way.